Welcome to Direct Crown, a new dimension in dentistry. At Direct Crown, our product line has been developed to solve the problems you encounter every day. We develop and deliver innovative, time-saving, and cost-effective products. At Direct Crown, our goal is to develop products and techniques to enhance both efficiency and profitability in keeping with our philosophy of minimal invasiveness at the lowest cost. For comments, questions, or more information regarding Direct Crown products and techniques, call us at 1-888-910-4490 or email us at info@directcrown.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Maltrud. I'm going to be introducing you to Direct Crown's Natural1 Nano Hybrid Composite Resin Shell Crown for restorative work. What we're going to be doing, utilizing a model, putting a crown on tooth number 3, and we choose the appropriate crown shell, which would be numbered tooth number 3, and we've done our preparation. And from that preparation, we'll be taking an impression, going through fitting a crown shell onto the preparation and onto a model of the preparation. And from there, we'll be fabricating extraorally the crown for final delivery to the patient. The patient we'll be utilizing today is an articulator, so it's for demonstration purposes only. But we'll get started from the point where you would have the patient in, they're already numbed up, and the preparation is done. And now you're going to be doing the actual procedure, fabricating the crown. The first thing that we would do is, as a team, we take and get a very good impression utilizing an alginate impression and a hydrocolloid wash in this particular instance. Now, what we're using, any good alginate will work in this situation. The demonstration we're using today, we're using a syringeable hydrocolloid, which is made by Dux Dental, and that syringeable hydrocolloid gives us much more detail in our final impression. So my assistant would mix up the alginate. So the alginate is mixed appropriately, so your assistant is putting in the measured amounts of alginate and mixing to its best consistency for taking an impression. And then once the alginate is mixed, I'm going to be switching to put the hydrocolloid into the impression tray. We're going to be utilizing a dual arch impression tray. In this particular situation, we're using an impression tray that is from Clinician's Choice, and I'm loading that impression tray at this point with the alginate. I'm going to set this off to the side for a moment, and I'm going to load up our syringe, and this is how the hydrocolloid is delivered in almost an anesthetic syringe type situation. On that syringe will be a blunt-ended tip. We'll make sure the tip is on generally before we get started with the impression. Take that off. We're going to take a little bit of excess out first, go to the model, and the patient's tooth number 3 we're going to be impressioning. So we take the hydrocolloid, impression it around the tooth, making sure that we're getting the details of the margins. Then we'll go back. Your assistant would hand you your impression in the dual arch tray. You place it onto the patient. Go ahead and have the patient close into maximum intercuspation. They don't have to bite down hard. And we have our impression setting up. After removing the alginate hydrocolloid impression, I would like you to take a look at the detail of that hydrocolloid impression. And we get that routinely in our office with patients. From this point, what we're doing now is pouring it up with a very good vinyl polysiloxane dye material. This is a very runny material, and what we'll do is start in an area that is away from the actual prepared surface, so that you'll see the materials coming out of the dual cartridge that they'll be mixing in the tip, And sometimes that very first mix isn't exactly what you want it to be, so you'd probably do this outside the die, but for these purposes, I'm doing it on the model so that it's not messy here in the studio. And then I'm going to go down into the preparation, trying to keep the tip submerged inside of the preparation at all times, and trying to get all the detail that we can get out of that model die making. This material sets extremely fast, and under studio lights it sets even faster. So I'm actually getting a very, very fast set on the material. I'm getting to the point where I can't hardly squeeze it out of there. In the operatory, and if you're at room temperature, generally it doesn't set quite this fast. All right, that gives you an idea of how fast the material sets. I'm looking back here, you can see that it's almost set at the front portion where I started. That's the cue for me to go to making a articulated model. So we have one side of it done already with the die material. It is very accurate. Then we're using something called the die maker articulator that gives us a quadrant articulator, dual arch, and we will be pouring up some good vinyl polysiloxane bite material, but it's a super fast setting. This particular case we're using mock or a blue moose from Parkel, and I'm going to syringe this as fast as I can into this model because it's going to set up fast under these studio lights. And all we're doing is making sure that we can articulate this whole system back together, so when we're done we have an articulated model to work from. All right, we have that. We're going to start our mounting process. Add it here. The opposing model I can actually pour utilizing this material. I'm just injecting it down inside of there. And I want to make sure I have fresh material when I mate everything together. So I'm going to go back to the first side and add some of this fresh material because it does set very, very rapidly. And your assistant at this point is making this model. You're using the side without the septums will be the side that is utilized for the dies, and this is the articulated articulation side. Now you'll see that we have the model articulated. This material will set up very rapidly. I'm going to actually do this live, real time, to show you how fast this really goes. When we're fabricating a single appointment indirect restoration such as this Direct Crown Natural1, speed is important because what we want to do is be able to have the patient in the chair for as little time as possible. This particular type of a single appointment restoration will probably take the average dental office somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour. Hour the first time, and you'll get faster as time goes on. All right, let's see. There we are. We're going to disarticulate that. And there we have our final die. And we're ready to go to try in our provisional. Now this is something that you are going to be delegating to your assistant. But in this process, you will pick the appropriate shell, and the shells are numbered per tooth. So there's a small, medium, and a large for each of the posterior teeth in the mouth. So this particular tooth is tooth number 3. This is a number 3 medium-sized shell, and I'll be trying it on. On the tab will be a number that will correspond. It'll say 3M for medium. Now we'll try it on, and we'll notice that it's just a little bit too tight for us to get the articulator closed down all the way. So we will take and trim that. One of the things I want to do before we go to the trimming process is, if you could zoom in on this, I'd really like to show the detail of that impression, or actually of that model work. The detail is, I think, quite exquisite, and it was done in a matter of minutes. All right, I'm going to set that off to the side, and I'm going to have to go and trim this just so that it'll sit down passively on the die. All right, we're back from trimming up the Direct Crown Natural1 From here on out, I'll probably just call it the Natural1 crown form. And you'll see that I can articulate the model to its full articulation. At this point, what I'm going to be doing is taking and sandblasting the internal aspect of the crown. So using a micro aerabrator, when there are many good ones out there on the market, or actually an abrasion unit in your operatory, if you happen to have that, you will take, and your assistant, I should say, will be aerabrating to roughen up the internal surfaces of the crown shell. Once it's been roughened up, you are going to be adding a surface activating material that we have that's dedicated to this particular heat pressure cured nano hybrid composite, and this material is called composive, and it comes from Candelar. It will be coming with the direct crown kit so that you will be able to add composite to it. So the first thing that you'll do is you'll add just a small amount of the composite to the inside of the crown. Then we'll paint it on all surfaces of the tooth. And if you know that you have to go interproximally a little wider to be able to get your embrasure form corrected, you may have to sandblast the outsides and put a little bit of compositive on the outside of the crown form also. And you take the excess and make sure you get it off from there, because you don't want this to be overly thick. It's just a layer that's designed It's just a layer that is designed to take and allow our composite filling material to stick to the crown shell. So once we get this composite on and thinned and covering every surface you want it to, you'll go ahead and cure the composite. So you're going to cure that for 10 seconds. And once you're done curing it for that 10-second cycle, what you're going to want to do is not touch that surface, because what you have is an oxygen-inhibited layer that will allow the composite to stick to it very, very well. Now the next step will be taking a fine composite material that is in the proper shade for what you're working on. We're working on a ivorine tooth which has really no, it's a very opaque ivorine tooth, so we're just going to use for this case a B2 composite. So a good material that will give us very good form. I'm filling up the internal aspect of it, and once that internal aspect is filled, we'll make sure that it gets to all the edges. Okay, one of the parts of the process here that I really should tell you about is in the fabrication of this crown shell, you will see that there's a window that's cut out of it. That window allows us to make variations of the interproximal contact. So we could have a wide contact, we could have a narrow contact. So in the three sizes that are in this particular crown shell form, it gives us the ability to fit virtually every tooth that you'll ever run into for that particular tooth size. So what I want to do is make sure when I'm loading the tray that I'm getting material into that interproximal area so that we fill the entire embrasure. Now what you're going to do is orient the crown onto the tooth. Let me move that forward for you. Buckles out. You're going to see I'm going to slowly start to push it down onto there. Excesses are going to flow out around the peripheries of the crown. And I had overfilled that significantly. Now that we have it fully articulated, you will take and start to remove the excess resin material. Now this crown shell, the Direct Crown Natural1, is made out of a translucent material that you can actually change the color of the tooth in the process of restoring. So what we'll do is remove the excess, and once we get it fairly well adapted to the tooth, the next step that I will do, or the next step that we will do, is cure it. The curing aspect of this is crucial. I want to make sure that you're testing your lights in your office so that you have very strong curing light, whether it's halogen or LED, I don't care, as long as it's a very strong output that you have with the light. I'm going to be utilizing there we go. I'm going to be utilizing a curing light today that has extremely strong outputs. There are many of them on the market. I just happen to be using this particular one. As I look at this now, I'm going to kind of drop back here a little bit and let you know that I do not have that mesial shaped the way that I want it to. The distal I'm happy with. I can trim that back. The mesial is not shaped appropriately. So what I'll do is I'll go back and get some of my material, and I will add to the restoration to make sure that I get the proper embrasure, because this is going to save you time in the process of finishing and prevent food impaction and give you a much better restoration when you get down to the end. All right, that is about as good as we need it to be for us to go ahead and cure it. So you're going to cure all aspects of this for 10 seconds on the buccal, 10 seconds on the lingual, 10 seconds on the occlusal. You're going to spend some time on the interproximals. Now that we've finished our curing, what we'll do is remove the hardened crown shell, and I will turn that towards you so you can see the marginal integrity that we have. From here, your assistant will take it to the lab, just like they've been doing for years making provisionals. They'll go back and trim this and polish it. Finishing and polishing process has been done on this particular crown form, and what we're going to do is try it back on the die, and you'll see the marginal integrity. You have to realize we're utilizing a material that we probably don't have the exact match of color like you'll be able to get in the tooth, but you can see the translucency that's built into that crown, and it really gives you a very natural look to the crown. We'll test the bite, make sure that we're getting pretty close with the occlusion. The final occlusion will be adjusted in the mouth using the human articulator. And from here, what you will do to get it cemented, you'll take and once again sandblast the internal aspect of the crown form and go ahead and go through your normal resin bonding techniques that you use for any type of a resin restoration, an indirect resin restoration. We'll take our final crown form, go back to the patient, and we're going to go back to the patient and test it in and make sure that we have it fitting appropriately on that particular tooth. So there we are on the patient. You'll test it in, check your interproximal contacts, make sure that they're fine. From here, your assistant can call you. You can come back into the room and you will bond this to the tooth or cement it to the tooth using any of the good new dual cured resin cements that are on the market. That's it. That's a crown in a single appointment that will provide for your patients, whether they're economically strapped or they have issues with, maybe they're a cancer patient and they're questioning their longevity in life, or you have people that are in the waning years of their life, but you cannot do anything other than a crown for that particular situation. This allows them to have a crown that is price pointed that could be well below a porcelain fused to metal crown or a gold crown, so that you can provide the service for them that is going to provide long-term use of that particular tooth.